Freaking let the ball fall in and.
All right, thanks everyone for joining kind of session 2 here of the little
Hey, Mike.
classroom work we're planning to do. Where'd that come from? Yeah.
Brian has a
Yeah, I
little
was just
something to
gonna-
say.
Hey.
Can I introduce it? Mr. Brian, go for it.
So, thank you guys for inviting us to the bags tournament. It was a lot of fun. And we got Larry and everyone here a little gift.
Cool.
We know you guys like playing bags. And so,
Ron, we're gonna check on those
Yeah.
every time.
Where's Nick?
Hi.
There you go.
Ron, those are regulations.
Are they? It better be.
Actually, that's awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
And also, real quick, thank you for bringing us in on the fundraiser that you all had for the custodian. Yeah, we really appreciate that.
Any update on that? Did they already go and have the procedure?
It is October 27th, so he's going into surgery.
Brian and I have a foundation that we've had for about 4 or 5 years. All efforts and monies have gone towards trying to find Mike a girlfriend.
It's not enough money.
Yeah, it's
We're in the negative. It's really weird.
I
hear
hear jealousy.
We're bleeding money.
I hear the jealousy over you being single.
Yeah.
Get him
Heavy
one.
weighs the crowd.
Buy him a Lambo and see if that gets him.
All right. Good?
Yeah.
Okay. So, the purpose of today is obviously the second installment of selling services. Within the first class, I think most of the familiar faces here, we were talking about adding services onto something you're already doing. If you're selling a server, tack on services. You sold some wireless access points, tack on services. Well, the reason again, better margin. Even if you take a bath on a couple of points on the hardware, you can still make that up in tenfold on the services side of things. Today's goal is to now complement that by what I don't want to have happen, and if the stigma's there, I want to break that today, is that services isn't necessarily a transactional event. It can be a monthly recurring revenue avenue for you, and it's something that can be very lucrative, and if you stack up enough clients, again, you can kind of set it and forget it type of environment. So the goal of today is again to really kind of talk about how services can be services as a service now. So kind of graduating from the no-brainer, if you're selling a piece of hardware, tack on services to it. Now again, being less transactional, today we're going to talk about how you can turn that into monthly recurring revenue. So what's so great about it? What it can do is really help you, and maybe if you have a couple slow months or you're in your slump, and if you have enough of these types of engagements where there's monthly, they're paying a monthly fee for some type of service that you're providing, either on-site or remote, again, that can kind of get you through those months where, you're bringing in 5K, 10K, 50K, whatever it is, and you didn't even have to pick up the phone that month. It can get you through some of your lighter months. It'll give you, obviously, year-round dialogue with your clients as well too. That's the name of the game. That's kind of the goal at the end of the day, is you want to be sticky in these accounts. You don't want to be sitting around waiting for the next big project. Again, big projects are great, for sure. Great margin, you're gonna make good money, but you can't make projects pop out of thin air. These, whereas these types of services we're gonna talk about today, keeps you in that account, even with the presence as frequent as every day in some instances. So we'll talk about that in a few. Again, the idea is you can stack these services so that again, even on a really slow month, you can still destroy your goal. And it's just essentially, it's the most effective way and sustainable model for selling services, where you can still field those projects as they come in, but you're also providing your end user with continued support as well. And it kind of helps you set your own goals as well too. I think in some side conversations we've had with a couple of you, and even just on your own, I think you guys have talked about setting your own goals, especially with monthly recurring revenue. And so again, today's goal is to show you how to do it with, again, the traditional people think for monthly recurring revenue is MSP work or cloud services, managed cloud services. Those are the typical ones you guys think of, or a VoIP solution where again, you got them on some type of VoIP plan and you're getting a margin on that every month. There's some really much bigger numbers that we'll talk about today that can complement those, again, those don't need to go away, but it's, again, thinking of services as a long-term continuum instead of transactional. So, these are the services that we'll be talking about today. We'll be talking about SLAs, tech days. I think we touched on tech days in the first Selling Services 101, but we'll really dive into that. Staff augmentation, a new service we're rolling out actually today. We'll be unveiling to you guys is LAN as a service, depot services, and then our old buddy, the hour blocks. That'll be kind of an add-on towards the end here. So the first one we'll dive into is SLAs. So what SLAs are is they provide very quick turnaround support for your clients. These are going to be your mission critical clients that just absolutely cannot have any downtime. It's, you can lock in a 12-month contract of a guaranteed revenue, whether they have one emergency call in the month or 50, you have a monthly set rate that they're going to pay you, or pay MicroAge just to uphold that SLA. So look on this line here, the SLA, we have next business day guaranteed, same business day guaranteed, 8 hours, 4 hours, and 2 hours. So again, I want you guys to just kind of start thinking about some specific clients of your own that could, A, would see the need for a 2-hour turnaround, and B, we'll very easily talk about how it's completely justified in their mind. So essentially the idea of
Ron,
the
do you have
SLA.
a question?
I do. 2-hour turnaround times. What if the client's way out in the middle of nowhere?
Obviously, before engaging into it, we would make sure that all the parameters are set into place so we're not set up for failure. But if the opportunity needs it, we augment one of our own people into that territory if need be, or we bring on an additional resource in that area.
Okay, because I understand like 2-hour turnaround times in large metropolitan areas.
Yeah.
You go out in
Usually.
the middle of Wisconsin and you're 3-hour drive away from anything and there's no flights that go in there.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Yeah,
Typically,
all of these SLAs are extremely vetted before because,
Yeah.
I mean, this is literally what
We're
they're
guaranteeing
purchasing,
it.
that guarantee. So we will never set ourselves up for something that we can't do. Now, there may be a situation where we just don't, that one little, pocket in Wyoming or Montana where 2 hours is just not gonna happen. We're gonna walk away from that opportunity.
and typically there's
pop them
not
down
to
to
be
a
a
next
need.
business day or something
Exactly,
that's more
sure,
relevant.
sure.
If it's an enterprise client that has the need of a 2-hour SLA, very rarely, I can't think, unless it's a data that would make sense. They're typically in more metro areas, but as he just said, prior to engaging in the contract and everything. we
Didn't
make
mean to
sure-
derail you, thanks for the answer.
No, yeah.
And actually too, we had a client in La Crosse, Wisconsin that wanted an SLA, and that's a pretty good example, because La Crosse, Wisconsin is 3 hours from Minneapolis, it's 4 hours from Chicago, it's 3 hours from Milwaukee, I wanna say, so it's kind of, it's all those cities we can service pretty well. And so what we did for that client is we were actually able to get them an SLA, and so we had our guys in those markets that were able to be there for the non-mission critical stuff, and then we actually engaged a couple contractors in La Crosse. And the way we did that, and the way we do some of these SLAs, is we actually pay our contractors in certain markets a retainer to be available, and we don't just have one, right? Because we need to develop this so that we've got redundancy in place, so no matter what we can, because we're guaranteeing it, and we're actually, there's actually penalties that we have to give to the customer if we don't meet the SLA. So there may be an instance when something like La Crosse pops up and we can figure it out and still offer a 2-hour SLA, or we might, like Mike said, talk them down to a 4 or next business or same business
Do
day.
you maybe wanna touch on, I think we had a 2-hour SLA with Spotify,
Yeah.
isn't that right? What
Yeah.
were the details behind that one? Do you guys?
So Spotify, they're actually no longer a client of ours because they moved all their data centers to Europe, but they had 2 data centers in the US. They had one in San Fran and one in the DC area. And they would pay us for a 24/7, I think they had a 4-hour. They either had a 2 or a 4.
Something like that.
And basically Spotify just has a gazillion servers, right? And with hard drives and all of them, and that's how they're running the service that we all use, right? And so what they would do is they would batch into our ticketing system, and they'd have a failed drive in one of their servers, and that would basically engage in the SLA. We'd be on site, and we're getting calls at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, we'd be there swapping drives. And we had that account for, until they moved their data centers, we had that account for maybe 5 years, and we never missed an SLA. So it's a great case study.
So, how do I know that you guys have the hardware? Because you just said you're swapping drives. That means you're showing up with a HP hard drive or a Dell hard drive, or?
So you'll see later we talk about another service we have, which is depot services. But in that instance, and we custom tailor all of our services, in that instance, the client actually had the drives there on site at the data center. And so they just had just boxes and boxes of hard drives sitting waiting for us. So we were providing more of the person than we were the hardware. But in some instances, they'll ask us to bring the hardware with. They'll either have us have a set of it in one of our depots, or maybe if it's something they can get to us and then we'll install it. Really depends on where that hardware is. And sometimes it's procuring it, right? So at the time of, they might say, we want you to facilitate everything start to finish, procure the hardware, install the hardware. So it really depends on what the end user is looking for.
What the solution is at the end of the day is it's providing coverage. It's similar to what we do with MSPs as well too. Remember, MSPs do a great job at remote work, and then they can typically send someone from their bench in maybe a 50, 100-mile radius. But if they're supporting anyone outside of that, they have no coverage there, and it's either someone hopping on a plane or them staffing someone at that site, and there's probably not enough 40 hours worth of work to staff a full-time person there. So an SLA gives them that coverage for those mission-critical sites. So data centers is another big one. Any business that's done a thorough impact analysis is going to completely understand the SLA, and they will know to the penny how much money they're losing every minute that they're down and network's down. They'll know, and these prices are easily justified versus, again, running around trying to find someone to get on site or flying out the next morning to get there. This puts, it's the difference between getting someone the next day and immediately. So with a 2-hour SLA, again, that's tickets submitted and there's someone on site within 2 hours. And again, we will always properly vet it to make sure that we can support what we're guaranteeing.
And one another way that it might be purchased is, this is a perfect case study as well. Ericsson basically sold off part of their company called MediaKind, and when they did that, all the support that MediaKind got was always from Ericsson engineers, right? So now they have this switch, and they're like, oh crap, we've got all these offices everywhere. We don't know how to support it yet. We're trying to figure it out. We might staff them, we might not, but in the meantime, we can't afford to be down for any period of time. So we're going to engage you in an SLA agreement until we kind of figure everything out. A lot of times it just keeps going, right? You'll see this in mergers and acquisitions. You'll see this in anyone that's really done that business impact analysis. Really anyone that's trying to figure out how to support a location in a short period of time and have a guarantee.
Yeah, just one more quick example. Brian mentioned acquisitions. So WME, the biggest talent agency in the world, acquired IMG, which is the biggest sports talent agency in the world. This happened about 3 or 4 years ago. So naturally, in the acquisition, they picked up about 13 or 14 more locations that originally they just didn't have coverage for. And then again, this is worldwide. So we signed up for an 8-hour SLA for all, it was like 26 locations. So, we were able to fill that need immediately, and they were able to sleep at night knowing that all of these new locations now have the same coverage as their home original base locations.
And that's monthly recurring revenue as well.
So the takeaway is we can do it, but the bigger takeaway is that's money that you're getting month in, month out, guaranteed. Again, if we're guaranteeing these different SLAs, that's money that you're sitting back, revenue that you're bringing in, not having to make calls, finding out what the next project is. It's locked in, you have a 12-month contract with it. Set it and forget it, kind of.
And there's also the revenue too. So that cost is just to have us available, right? So we're contractually agreeing that we will be able to be on site in a certain period of time in a certain place. But then when they need us, they're still paying by the hour, right? So, and you'll see later, Mike will talk about bolting on hour blocks, but whether it's, time and materials or hour blocks, you're still gonna have the opportunity to get paid on this going forward outside of that monthly recurring. So that monthly recurring number will be kind of steady, and then you'll have a number floating below it, that's just all the usage that you're getting paid on as well. So it's a pretty nice thing to sell.
So next, we'll talk about tech days, and I think we broached on this last time, but tech days basically establishes a structured deployment model that can range from daily visits to 1 visit a month, but it is planned out, it's guaranteed, it provides a discount to the end user, and again, you're in that client all the time, you're sticky within them, you're not waiting for projects to come up. There's a scheduled day and time that our engineers will show up. And it's all customized to whatever the size of the company is and the need that they have. So small to mid-sized businesses will typically find themselves left with that kind of fork in the road. Do we hire an additional person on staff to take on, we're flooded in tickets, help desk tickets, and do we hire someone on, or do we have some extra pair of hands come in a couple days a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, whatever it is. We'll customize that plan, and again, they'll show up every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. or every Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the morning. The takeaway for this one is, again, it's recurring revenue, it's long-term engagements. With tech days, we're basically augmenting the efforts that they would have to potentially go out and hire an additional staff member for. The solution, it's the best bang for the buck for, again, the reason you see there, so obviously the discounts, more often we're in there in a month, the more we can chip away at the hourly rate and make it obviously cost effective for them. It's basically, it's kind of the hybrid between selling an hour block and staff augmentation, and it's monthly revenue for your run rate. And again, you're still sticky in that client. So you're creating that feeling, basically, when a good example that I think of is a law office that we support in Chicago. We've been doing it for years now. They know him by first name. He walks in, it's as if it's an employee of their own staff. And they just kind of have the laundry list for them, the honey-do list. As soon as our guy walks in, here's what's accumulated since the last time you were in. I think we're in Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So, since your last visit, you work on this, this, and this, and it's just, they know it. It's like clockwork. It's not an instance where, again, they maybe didn't even SLA because nothing's mission critical for that type of work. But again, it's complementing the need instead of hiring an additional staff IT member from that client. So it gives the feel of, again, kind of giving them an added staff member without having to pay 40 hours a week plus benefits and all that. It's going to save them a lot of money. So obviously, we would work with you guys to understand the need, understand on a given day how many tickets are being requested, and then from there we can determine, do they need 1 day a week, 5 days a week, whatever.
Yeah, Mike, we have another kind of cool example of a success story with Tech Days. So there's this company, Whale Rock Industries, based in Santa Monica, California. You probably haven't heard of them. They're a media company. And they were in charge of launching all of the Kardashian apps that I know you all know and love. About 3 years ago, and literally, if you looked at your Play Store or your Apple Store, or whatever it is, iTunes, they were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like each Kardashian had their own app, and they were all top ranked in the world. So this company grew from 50 employees to 200 employees overnight, essentially. So what does that mean? That means they need to set up new laptops, new workstations, they need to asset tag everything, they need just help desk support in general to a degree that they never had before. So they outsourced to us. We started with 1 engineer, 3 days a week, 8 hours a day. Get a phone call after a week, Joe, we need Ryan 4 days. Well, okay, not a problem. Joe, we need Ryan 5 days. Joe, can you bring in a second resource? And this literally grew from just 3 days a week to 2, essentially full-time, which Mike will talk about in the staff aug portion. I had 2 of my W-2 LA engineers on site for almost 2 years. It's a $500,000 project for us. So it just shows the stickiness that Mike's talking about and the relationships that are built. And you do a good job, and they keep kicking the can down the road to hire internally. The cost of an employee is 30 to 35%, depending on what state you're in. So to outsource to to a company that's been doing a great job, you know, you kind of have your stay for as long as, you know, for a good amount of time there, so.
And another good selling point too is, and I think about that law firm that Mike was talking about, they weren't tech savvy at all, right? So the three partners that ran that firm basically said, we don't know, but we know we need it, right? And so us providing those tech day services allowed them to be able to have an entire IT operation without knowing anything about it. So not only did we have the guy there frequently, but we also make recommendations, help them with procurement, help them understand. They were using another company to buy all the gear, just like you guys, right? I mean, that's really kind of where we sit. We sit in between a lot of hardware sellers and end users and kind of in that middle space. But they liked it because we gave the recommendations, we did the on-site support, and guess what? If our engineer was sick or on vacation, we provided another engineer. If they had a bigger project where they needed 2 guys versus 1, because now they're, you know, installing wireless. This is, you know, in the time when, you know, I think they just started adding wireless. You know, we're providing those resources. So a selling point to your end user is, you know, don't worry about the IT. We can come in and manage the whole thing, and you don't have to put someone on payroll. You don't have to then have someone on payroll that understands what the person's doing to be able to manage them, right? Because it's not just having the resource, it's having someone that understands what they're doing every day and telling them what to do. So now you've got one company that's providing that resource, providing the management, and you know, it's sometimes cheaper, sometimes more expensive than a W-2 employee, but no matter what, it's easier and it's a better product for them when they're that type of client. And once again, monthly recurring. I mean, that law firm that Mike's talking about, I can't remember if it was $240 or $260 a year. We billed them for like 10 years or something like that. I mean, that's how much they were paying us every year for these tech day visits, for, you know, the resources that were kind of, you know, going up and down between, you know, how many days they were on site. And so if you think about the recurring revenue on that, I mean, it's just massive, right? And it was just BAU, 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 BAU.
And so that kind of leads into the next one. And again, there's some blurred lines, and I can always help you guys again to determine, is tech days better or is a staff augmentation a better scenario? And we can always talk through that. And client's budget plays a factor into that as well too, but that's something we can always tackle together. But essentially, with staff aug, it's basically the most multifaceted engagement that you can really have. It's a really intimate engagement with your end user, in the sense that you're taking a lot off of their plate, not only from the IT department that needs the additional help, but their HR department as well too. Because remember, that's the person that's gonna have to go out, find candidates, vet them, interview them, hire them, determine benefits, all that other stuff. Imagine does that. You're helping multiple departments within your end user in a staff augmentation, and again, it's typically for a long-term engagement. That's what you're shooting for as well too.
I don't know if this is a dumb question, but does it have to be an IT-related employee, or?
For the most part, we have made exceptions, utilizing the other parts of our business, specifically project management. So we have placed some of our project managers on projects that were maybe touched IT, but were a little bit of a peripheral. But by and large, the great majority is IT, but we have also done
What
staff.
do you have in mind?
I was just asking,
Okay.
just in case it came up.
Like a mechanic?
Yeah.
I can point you to a guy, but yeah.
But even too, I mean, sometimes things are a little more technical. So we had a company that was doing services for Dollar General, and Dollar General basically needed a batch file for their accounting that took these thousands and thousands of invoices every month and put them into a simplified like electronic EDI type of file, so it could go right into their accounting system. And so we actually staffed someone for a period of time that knew the technology and the accounting, right? So there's always got to be some sort of technology there for it to be something that, you know, we would be involved in. But in that instance, that person was almost more of an accounting person, but they were a highly technical accounting person.
That was a long term.
That was like, I want to say like 3 months. They built all the processes and systems, and then it just kind of just running now.
But in the end of the day, there are a lot of agencies that would much rather third party out that specific facet of it. They don't have the time to be looking for qualified candidates, doing the interviews. Last minute, the person says, oh, I took another job. It's a lot of time that they don't have as well. So again, a staff aug it'll definitely get you in multiple people's good graces if you're able to come through and provide a good resource for it.
So we're actually just, if I could throw out just another example, so we're wrapping up a 13-month engagement at DSW headquarters in Columbus, Ohio. Essentially, they were misled by somebody that they hired in terms of their Meraki capabilities, and they were upgrading all of HQ. Eventually, things went awry. It was kind of a bad situation, but they called us up and we flew. I flew our W2 guy from Greenville, who's a Meraki expert, to Columbus, Ohio every Sunday and flew him home every Friday night. And he was there, we're talking 13 months, and it's beautiful monthly recurring. What's even more beautiful is that now we're in talks about doing all the DSW stores nationwide. And again, everything comes back to the stickiness and boxing other people out, staying relevant, not only being able to talk to, partners and end users when there's projects that come up, but being in constant communication. So.
Hey Mike, what happens when you guys deploy somebody with staff augmentation in months or a year or whatever, they want to hire that person away from you guys? What happens?
Great question. It's a possibility. It's typically discussed in the beginning when we're setting up the contract if it is a temp to hire scenario. But even if it's not, and that we really like Johnny, he's doing a great job. Could we offer him? That is not. We've placed several. Probably in the last 3 years we've placed a handful, and that's something where again you get a finder's fee for that. If they do hire them on, you get a chunk of basically what that annual salary they would be paying. We get a percentage of it. Yep.
It just has to add up. The engineer has to be down for it, obviously the partnering company, and the financials and all that.
It's usually in the initial SOW, you'll have if you keep them for this long, you'll pay this percentage. So we always spell that out.
That's okay, Larry. And that, what percentage of SMB companies do you think use staff aug on a regular basis?
Like versus tech days or just in general?
Just in general, like what's the opportunity out there? Like what percentage of companies that are in our wheelhouse actually use staff aug from somebody, not from you guys, but
I don't want to throw a number that's inaccurate, but it's a huge opportunity. Again, it's constantly on an HR person's mind, especially when they're starting to hear it from managers. Hey, I need the funding this year to get an extra IT employee. Can we find it quicker? We're flooding, we're drowning in tickets here. It's a huge opportunity, and mid-size all the way to enterprise. I think you said United Airlines.
Yeah, United Airlines
exclusively
uses all contractors. They do staff aug for everyone that's not in some sort of management position. So everyone in IT that's not management is a contractor.
It's staff aug.
Yeah, and when you think about staff aug, one thing to think about is as things are transforming here, the technologies that companies need today are different than what they needed yesterday, right? So today, a lot of the technologies they need is virtualization. It's an engineer that knows Azure, AWS. It's things that they're not used to, and so a lot of times what they're just saying, forget this. This isn't even our bag. We understand network infrastructure and all this other stuff, but rather than try to learn it as an organization, we'd rather just have someone manage it for us.
How do you interview for something that you don't even understand as well yourself? How you don't know if this guy's full of crap or not? So that's another one that again, third partying out to someone that can do the vetting for you and is going to be the appropriate resource you need. It's gonna get you in that account like you've never been. Everyone in that company is gonna know your name and want to have little side projects for you. It's a great way to get in.
Yeah,
Now, Larry.
Oh.
I'm going to kind of go on to what Brian said. Actually, there's more opportunity in the mid-size accounts than there are in enterprise.
Oh, for sure.
Because the mid-size accounts and small accounts don't have the infrastructure So almost every account has, when you call a client and they say, I lost my network admin, or I lost that's a staff aug opportunity. That's what you're looking for, is you're looking for those gaps when they can't handle what they got going on, which is almost always.
If you're hearing about a project that's just lagging forever, do a little
Those
bit
are
of
all
digging, and
opportunities.
you'll find out someone left in the company, and that workload is getting dispersed to everyone else now, spread across, and, you know, they're drowning, so it can actually hold up projects you're waiting to get started, because they're short-staffed, so that's a good point.
And to Larry's point too, we hear all the time, exactly what you said, the manager is gone. So now we have these IT engineers, IT people, but we don't actually have someone that knows how to lead the team. So we need someone, we haven't been able to find someone, or this person's leaving in 2 or 3 weeks. We don't know what we're gonna do. You know, let's engage you for at least, 6 months while we kind of get things organized, and then figure out, do we even need that role, do we not? So yeah, that's very common in the SMB space.
Also, staff log?
And then again, just real quick on the enterprise side, when they have new projects come up, they can't generally take the IT staff that they have from their day-to-day job and doing what they're doing just to go work on a project and leave this unattended. So, we can come in and be a perfect complement to them, so. Yeah. We're good.
All right. Strap in here. So LAN as a service. This is a new product, but a service that we will be rolling out for you guys. What is it? Physically, it's a managed Cisco Layer 7 firewall switch. What it does is it replaces the need for your client to architect and manage the core network hardware that you've probably already sold them over the years. And they treat it as a lot of the different services as a service that you're probably already selling and don't really think about it. So printer services, cloud managed services, VoIP services, these are all things that in our mind it'd be weird to not have a monthly recurring revenue for. This is kind of, in a couple of years here, this is gonna be that no-brainer as well too. The actual network itself is a service as a service. Let us take care of that so that they can, so that the IT managers can concentrate on the stack. So included in the LAN as a service, you'll get obviously the installation of the hardware at the customer's site. You'll have 24/7 proactive monitoring and a 1-hour response time, coupled with on-site support backed for the 4-hour SLA. So we're attaching a 4-hour SLA with a 1-hour response time to an all-inclusive solution that we're providing there. It'll be managed for them. It's off their plate, and it's a nice chunk of change for monthly recurring revenue. They'll also receive customized reporting for the network and bandwidth utilization as well. So things that they may be in the dark before, or they've been paying an MSP to get bits and pieces of to get that information, will all be readily available to them now as well too.
Yo, so do you require a long-term contract for that, or is that a month-to-month?
Have we set a minimum to it yet?
Yeah, so it's typically a 3-year contract. We can give some, a lot of times rather than lowering the contract, we just give an out clause if someone wants a shorter term. But because it's a full as a service product, if they stop paying for it, they lose their core network, right? And that's, something that they need. Everything in the office is, reliant on this stack of gear, right? So, but absolutely, if someone wanted a 6-month or wanted to try it out, yeah, sure, but it's a lot harder. It's the same thing like a phone migration, right? Once you migrate over to one of these VoIP carriers, to migrate over to another VoIP carrier is a process in itself. It's not just a quick flip of a switch. This is the same thing.
Well, that's why, so my recommendation, and something we deal with our clients, is you sign a month-to-month contract because you don't need to worry about it, because they're not booking in month 2, right? But at the same time, you have to invest in the hardware to make that happen, and so it's making sure you get your proper payback, even though every once in a while we'll be fine if it's a problem statement, right?
Yeah.
Do you think there would be significant more interest in the month-to-month?
Absolutely. So it's really, we struggle, just so you know, because we're an intermediary between our supplier and our client, right? And so we sell hardware all day long, trying to convince all these guys to sell services, and they're like, whoa, I sell that service and something goes wrong, I lose this hunk of hardware. Something that could go wrong is we provide a service, they're not happy with it, they went out of a 3-year contract, now I'm in a fight with my client, not only lose $1 million worth of hardware to get some kind of recurring service, I'm not interested as a salesperson. You give me a month to month, I tell my client, look, bottom line is if you're not happy with it, we're gonna provide you an exemplary service. But if you're not happy with it, you can get out, even though realistically they can't get out, because it's really hard to get out, right? It's a lot of work. And for that matter, you're gonna provide the exemplary service, that's not gonna be a problem anyway.
So we're pretty agile, and I'm sure it's one of the reasons you guys like working with us. So once we actually figure out the collateral for you guys on this, the pricing for you guys, and we know the end user pricing, but we want to figure out whether you want to white label it or whether you just want to resell it or whatever it might be. We can figure out all those terms. We're not opposed to anything like that because I mean, like you said, you got a problem client, you probably don't want them anyways, and at the end of the day, I mean that stacks in there, and once it's in there, they're not going to want to get rid of it. So.
And you've got leverage for making sure they pay their bills, because of course you can turn them off, right?
Just like the VoIP services, just like the print services, just like, any cloud services, right? You don't pay your bill, you lose connectivity.
And it's not some hokey solution either, I mean, it's all Cisco gear, but I can't think of a reason why they would wanna get rid of it. What would they migrate to? It's,
The fact of the matter is, we're packaging this in a way that's not seen in the industry. This is cutting edge stuff because not only are we, for all of the things that Mike mentioned, but to really highlight, we can also be on site within 4 hours. So some companies can do parts of this, undoubtedly, but we've yet to see this complete package out there. So you guys are selling something that is.
And to reiterate, on-site with hardware in hand.
Correct.
We have these depots everywhere. And of course, we wouldn't sell this contract with that, term in there if we weren't able to confirm that we have the hardware local to that market. But pretty much anywhere in established North America, we can have hardware in hand on-site in 4 hours, which you won't see from almost anyone. I mean, usually it's ship it to you next business day. You always see next business day, next business day. We're saying 4 hours with hardware.
So this is actually directed at you guys and I believe Larry. There's a lot of rules regarding around Cisco, and depending on how we would actually sell this, I think would determine what the answer is. So are we gonna have any compliance problems with Cisco? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'd have to, I don't know the logistics behind it. Are we selling the Cisco hardware? We can't legally sell it to you, you sell it to them, so that's where Gary's going, so. I guarantee I would make it work. We just gotta figure out the logistics behind it.
So I don't know if that's, maybe you guys collaborate.
We'll figure that out. But the hardware
It's a
is
valid
actually
question.
owned and managed by us. We own the hardware.
Yeah, we're not selling the hardware.
Yeah, then there's no issue, because we're selling it as a $10,000 a month service to the client,
Yeah.
and we're not.
Yeah, as long as there's no transfer of the technology,
Yeah.
we're not out of compliance, so.
Cisco's got a lot of weird rules.
Yeah,
They do, yeah.
Good question, though.
From Gary.
I know. All right, you guys for the week. We're done.
Does your guys' responsibility stop with a core switch as opposed to getting down like to edge switches and all that, or can you roll that in there to where you can manage everything?
we could customize the solution, but for this specific, it would be too specific to the stack that we're providing, but power block.
No. So, and sorry, this is a brand new product. We rolled it out last month, and so we're still trying to, kind of get everyone up to full speed on it. So actually, we charge for the core network, which is your firewall and your core switch, and then each ancillary switch is an add-on to it. So some companies that do something somewhat similar, no one does exactly this, but somewhat similar, they might charge by port, right? But we're actually charging by switch. And our management goes all the way down to the connectivity for the endpoints. So it's not just the core. We're not just saying we're going to communicate, between the WAN and your, edge network, right? We're going all the way and saying we'll design and manage your VLANs for you as well. If there's any issues on the network, we're going to detect those. Our NOC is going to monitor those and alert you guys. And then we're going to provide reporting for security, for utilization and all that. And it's going all the way to the actual endpoint connectivity. So this product actually, if someone has hosted everything else as a service, everything else in their office, and they get this product, they actually don't even need an IT person anymore. It's kind of crazy. IT people are going to leave working for the end users and start working for all the companies providing services to the end users. And that's just the shift here, as a service.
Yeah. monthly recurring revenue. Stacking this solution up with a tech day, and then bolting on an hour block for added services. Your 2020 could basically be, Larry, I'm not encouraging this, but sitting at home, not making calls, and bringing in $50K a month.
Well, they do that now. Kidding.
His words, not mine.
Ours does.
I think we got one more on here. Yep. So, again, hopefully this kind of got the gears working a little bit here. Who are the ideal targets for this? So, multi-location, mid-sized businesses that we've touched on. Multi-location enterprise-sized businesses, maybe with branch offices nationwide. Your startups and acquisitions. Companies looking to maybe replace their dock. So that's another thing, maybe always keep that in the back of your mind here. Listen to the call. We're looking to change our dock provider. Retail, that's another great one for it. That's one where there's typically one or no IT people at a retail store. So this is the perfect solution for it, instead of having someone maybe running around to all sorts of different retail stores for them. And basically any organization that has, it's under 50 employees and they're avoiding capital costs of an additional IT staff hire on. So again, you can kind of see all these somewhat blur into each other as well too. They complement either hiring someone on full time, or there's a need for 3 days a week but not a full-time member.
Yeah, and in addition to avoiding the capital costs for the IT staff, again, just to reiterate, they don't have to buy all of this equipment.
Which they may not have been able to afford to actually have a true full-fledged Cisco network. Now they can have an enterprise-grade solution at an SMB cost point, which is, it's amazing. It's something that, most organizations just don't even think about, right? Cisco, it's too expensive for us. We're gonna go, and use a, Cisco small business or whatever it might be.
And technically, if you don't have a guaranteed lease amount or a year, they can make it as an OpEx, no matter what size the company.
Exactly.
It becomes an OpEx versus a capital expense.
Exactly. To give a good case study, so this product's only a month old, so we don't have a lot of case studies yet, but we have a client we're onboarding right now that's a shared office provider. The reason it's a good case study is because they have a much more in-depth configuration and architecture than most end user clients have. So they currently have, I think, 5 locations, and they're opening up 2 new locations. For anyone that doesn't know shared office space, it's like the Regis's of the world. This isn't Regis, this is a different provider, but basically they lease out a floor, 2 floors, or 3 floors of a building, and they chop up the space to smaller businesses. So you'll have a small law firm and their small accounting firm, or you might even have a large corporate account. Google might need an office in Boise, right? And so they'll get a space in one of these shared office providers. So this company already has network infrastructure from us for these 5 locations. They're going to be using the LAN as a service for the 2 new locations, but then also what we're going to be doing is buying back their gear for the locations that they already have the gear, and we're going to be onboarding those other 5 locations. So they'll have all 7 locations now LAN as a service, and essentially removing, because they're growing and they're deciding, do we continue hiring IT people to design, build, manage this stuff, or do we get as a service? And from a configuration perspective, most clients might have a handful of VLANs, they might have a voice VLAN, they might have a guest VLAN, they might only have a few different, actual configurations in place, they might have some VPN clients. But when you think about the shared office space providers, they create a VLAN for every single client when they move in and when they move out. They set that VLAN for certain security restrictions. Sometimes they give a public IP address from their block of IPs for that specific end user. And so the landscape there is a lot different than your end user that's kind of a set it and forget it from the network perspective. It's, kind of build this architecture and then let it go. These guys are in there every single day, changing configurations and just submitting a ticket to us. Configurations get changed and they move on about their day. So it's a pretty cool case study that will actually drop a white paper on once we've kind of had a couple months of rolling with them, and I'd love to share that with you guys when we do have that white paper.
That'd be great.
Depot services. So what depot services is comprised of is your end users' mission critical equipment is stored locally. However close we need to have it to the location where the hardware would be needed. Trained technical staff then delivers it and installs it. We can tack on the best SLA in the business, and what that means is it's from Amazon getting it to them tomorrow to getting it on site today. And with a lot of clients that need SLAs, that means thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. If we can have it done today versus tomorrow, there is no roadblock for them as far as a budget. I mean, it's mission critical for them. So again, it's streamlining the equipment of staging and imaging it. We're doing that at the depot, or we can do it on site as well too, but it's basically, we're storing the equipment for them and then bringing it on site for them to install. Simply have your end user ship all the equipment to our depot. From there, again, we'll do the staging and imaging to ensure all the devices meet the requirements. And then Imagine will dispatch our local tech and the hardware gear, whatever the solution is, to the site. And they can obviously take advantage of bulk pricing. So a lot of schools will have budget that they have to use up, and so they'll buy, a couple thousand laptops at a time. Instead of having to store that at a facility of their own or maybe on site, they can send it to the different depots, maybe across the district if they need it. We can set up several. Or if it's even an end user that has locations nationwide, again, we can set up different depots throughout the country and have the gear deployed that same day, essentially. So it's great for sled accounts. I don't know if anyone's working that type of business or not, but we're currently wrapping up the last few details on, actually it's a local school system here, that again, I think they had 7,000 Dell laptops. They're basically using our depot as their ship to address. We're gonna be imaging and deploying the laptops from there to the different school sites. It's something that they don't have to hire a full-time person to take care of, essentially, and there's an SLA attached.
And you guys might ask yourself, okay, how can you have all this real estate just sitting, kind of waiting? Our sister company is Pronto, which is a disaster recovery company, and we're providing IT equipment within 24 hours of a disaster. It's a contracted insurance type of product. We have 31 global depots where we're storing equipment. So naturally, we already have these facilities in place. And then, like Mike said, sometimes we do pop-up depots as well, where if there's a special project in a specific market, we'll actually build out a space for a period of time. So we have these stationary depots. We're always adding. This year we added another one in London and one in Orlando. We continue to add as Pronto grows, and then Pronto and Imagine always share. These depots, some of them are fully staffed. Some of them are very dry. There's just, power, internet, and storage, and we bring in the engineers when we need to do things, and it's kind of a variety of all those.
Mike, how'd that process work with the sled? Was that a consortium? Was that did you use any kind of contracts for that?
To win the deal usually? Yeah, so a partner brought us into an RFQ basically, and as we read it, we're like, this is literally our depot offering, because he was trying to piecemeal it and get depot services from someone, and then he was essentially going to use us for the technicians to be on site, so we can do the whole thing in a bulk price, and it was a no-brainer at that point. Crystal clear?
And as far as monthly recurring as well, I mean, we definitely, this is a very specifically tailored pricing. We don't really have like, this many square feet is this much per month. Because a lot of times this actually ties also to an SLA agreement. So this is typically a bolt-on to an SLA agreement. It's very rare that someone says we want your space and nothing else, because if that was the case, they would use someone else. They want our space because we're technical, and we can, we understand the equipment, we understand how to store it, and then we understand how to install it as well. But just to give you an idea, if a client wants to store, let's say a retail client, retail's great for this, might have a couple point of sale machines kind of sitting dormant. It might say we've got 30 locations in Phoenix, and we just want some point of sale machines and some printers and some whatever, right, sitting there, so that we don't have to worry about shipping, overnighting, waiting till tomorrow. That we might charge $500 a month for, right? And then of course we're charging for whatever install delivery is taking place as well. They kind of bolt together. So that can add up. If you have a client that's got locations, all over the country, and they're looking to store equipment all over the country, I mean, we're talking, hundreds to thousands per month per location for that space. Big monthly recurring, and these are typically monthly recurring revenue agreements that just never end. I mean, it's rare that they need less, they typically end up needing more as time progresses.
And then our old friend, the hour block, and I think we've alluded to it a handful of times now. It's something that you can bolt on to a number of different solutions that we've talked about today, and even just simple services. Again, it's not a transaction and it's not a long term, but you can think of it as a long term in the sense that our hour block renewal rate is over 90%. So while it's a big chunk, because they're prepaid, so you get that big chunk of upfront revenue and profit, they'll burn through it, and again, they're just basically gonna auto renew after that. So you can think of it as a long-term engagement in the sense that they're going to become addicted to having that kind of a savings account of just hours sitting there. They don't want to go through working out a new SOW every time they have a project coming up or anything. They just know, hey, I have 75 hours, that makes me sleep happy at night because I have 3 projects coming up in 2020. I don't want to deal with negotiating and SOWs and all that every single project. I've got my solution already paid for and ready to go. So this is something that you can tack on to the depot services. Even our tech days can somewhat be a hybrid of that as well too. So again, I think we've talked about hour blocks in the past, but even if you're selling something and they talk about, well, I don't have the bandwidth to get this installed, again, if you're not able to get a hold of me for whatever reason, or they need to have a solution that second, offer up a 25-hour block. Worst case scenario, it's not enough and they need to purchase additional hours. Best case scenario, they have hours left over that they can use whenever because the hour block doesn't expire. So it's just a very simple add-on as well too, and it's at a discounted hourly rate. So the client's obviously gonna like seeing the lower hourly rate anyway.
And the way it works too with any of the agreements where there's multiples for emergency or after hours, or the SLA agreements, if you saw as the SLA becomes shorter time period, the hourly rate goes up. The way the hour blocks work is they just take a multiple out of that. So if you sell them a 100-hour block at X per hour, and that rate's floating around for different types of engagement, it just becomes 1.6 hours, 1.8, 2.3, 0.8, whatever it might be for remote. And so the hour block's kind of nice because it's just this bulk of hours that just kind of debits out until it's ready for renewal again, depending on the type of rate engagement, whether it's break fix or, like Mike said, projects, right? A lot of times people use those hour blocks for day-to-day support as well as they chip away at them for projects.
So I think we're coming up to the end of the hour here. Any questions on hour blocks?
Do we have on our wiki, we have your list of prices and services, where we can actually put it with SKUs and all, like including all the ones you mentioned before about the server?
I know hour block is on there.
I don't think we have pricing on.
I don't think we have pricing. Fluidly quote these.
Hour block is on there?
I don't think we have, I don't think we have pricing.
Okay, I'll work with Cassie today then, we can get it on there.
Yeah, let me see it first, but yeah.
Okay.
Good
So,
question, though, yeah. No, we don't. It's not skewed up with that one. Correct. Everything is customized.
so any questions in general or any specific solutions we talked about today? Kind of fielded them as-
Yeah, Mike, it's John DeVito.
Yeah.
Hey, is there any plans on putting together a co-branded marketing click that we can get out to customers on this, or I was just curious if there was some thought involved about putting something together like that.
Yeah, so this is Wyatt. So Mike and I actually just worked on a co-branded slip for a client that we're working with. So what I'll do is I'll send that out to you, and we can customize that how you'd like. But as far as logos and client and that sort of thing. So let me know, and I'll send it out. Let me know your feedback on it.
And I'm also working with Naomi and her team as well too on a couple of different initiatives as well too. So yeah, the end goal is to have a lot more co-branded documentation and hopefully presence in the near future too. I think maybe we can start doing a handful of conferences together, maybe kind of joining teams, things like that. So yeah, that's a great question. We do have one document ready to go for you, and then several others kind of in the works.
Yeah, the document that we do have is a really nice overview document. It speaks to the services at a high level. It speaks to the coverage map, which is really great because you know, that footprint, especially when you have, multiple locations with a client, has really good coverages and, you know, it eliminates travel costs and that sort of thing in terms of getting on a plane, hotels, things of that nature. So, I think it does a really nice job of describing the services and the footprint as far as coverage. And I think that's, you know, I would say 80% of the time, that's what clients are looking for up front.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I just heard a voice, I was like, God.
John's kinda like God.
Can you touch on some of the projects that you see coming in that's more of a regular, some of the trending type projects?
Like current projects?
Yeah.
Yep. Currently, we're doing some, web development. We're just about to pen a deal for a multi-location, switch install. I wanna say there's 12 or 13 locations. 2 of them, the end user is racking and stacking the equipment there, so the rest, our on-site person will do the racking and stacking. And then we have our on-site person working with another one of our remote engineers to do all the configuration for it as well too. So it's kind of a combo of a tier 1, tier 2 engagement for that one. It gets no better than that. That's gonna be a great opportunity.
We also have a data center move as well.
We've scoped out a data center move. We have a disaster recovery plan development coming up pretty soon here too.
How about the, one interesting one is Nathan had a client that bought a piece of equipment from you guys years ago, or a year ago or something, and couldn't get it installed.
Oh, yeah.
And was having issues with that, so, we're sending an engineer on site for, I think, 2 days to just get that working, so it's just the perfect marriage of selling, you know,
Synology.
hardware and, yeah, Synology device, that's
Yep,
right.
yep.
And one of the things I see is we're doing a lot of multi-location
Yeah.
projects with you too. So I'm starting to see just more and more of those that we're working on.
That's where we really, I mean, our business is built around multi-location. Of course, we can support a single location, but really, we are a multi-location service provider.
Cool.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much.